Hello and welcome to the Ice Guys. This is the show that takes you into the world of the National Hockey League. Every game, every day, from a betting perspective. With pro sports handicappers Ian Cameron, Alex B. Smith, and various guests from the world of hockey and sports betting. And now, here's your host, Ian Cameron.
Welcome to the Ice Guys, and it's our NHL Stanley Cup Playoffs preview show. Friday, April the 17th. Ian Cameron, Alex B. Smith with you. And yes, the regular season is over, although it was a pretty nice night from a betting standpoint for me last night to finish the regular season. Even though the bets were small, it was a good night. But that's over. We're not even going to do a recap because there's nothing really worth talking about from last night.
Except the bargain bin.
Bargain bin. That's true. We did have another one of those, which was great to see. Obviously, and it was early. We didn't have to wait too long with Pavel Buchnevich getting on the board for the St. Louis Blues.
How cool is this, though? First game, opening night, I hit Frank Nazar, first goal as our first bargain bin of the season.
Yep.
Night before last, I hit the last goal of the Hawk season. Nick Lardis is a bargain bin. And then yesterday, last day of the regular season, you hit the first goal with Pavel Buchnevich for a bargain bin. It's a perfect start in for that segment, definitely.
Yeah, the segment's been just incredible. I mean, never in our wildest dreams. We've done the segment now for 2 seasons, the bargain bin special of the night, and I don't think we ever thought it was going to be this successful, this profitable ever, because we're talking about plus 300 prices or better with every bet, and those aren't easy to hit. And the fact that we've been able to provide as many winners with the bargain bin selections as we have is remarkable. It's magnificent.
It is.
And we're proud of it. Very, very proud of what we've been able to do with the bargain bin special of the night segments. Last night was a great night. Vancouver, of course, with their first period goal for the best bet. That was great. So great end of the regular season. 60 units of profit. We got back to the 60 unit mark with last night's performance. So excited. A great regular season. And now it's about just trying to build on it here in the playoffs, which is a different type of handicap than the regular season. There's no question about that. So we will go series by series in just a moment. I do want to briefly say something about New Jersey hiring Sonny Mehta as their general manager. That was some news that broke last night. He is a heavy analytics guy, very heavy analytics guy, heavy into the numbers. Did work, of course, under Bill Zito with the Florida Panthers management team the last few years. And obviously, a successful management team, given what they were able to do down in Florida. He's actually been with the New Jersey Devils previously. He worked there for 6 years as their director of hockey analytics. He actually started the hockey analytics department for New Jersey. 6 years, obviously, there. And Sonny Mehta now with his first opportunity to be GM after being an assistant GM under Zito in Florida. Like I say, it's going to be data-driven. It's going to be an analytics approach there with the New Jersey Devils. He's also a New Jersey native as well. He's a Devils fan growing up. There's that picture that he posted on his Twitter account with him in the Devils jacket. Looked like one of those starter jackets from like the 90s there with the Devils. So he's a Devils fan. You can understand perfectly while there were other teams, discussing or having meetings with him why he ended up choosing New Jersey. So he is the new GM of the New Jersey Devils. It'll be interesting to see how it goes. I'm not going to comment on whether I think it's going to be great. Yeah, very, very interesting guy too. Musician, music degree. He's a writer. He's a poker player. He's been involved in options and stock market trading in the past. So this guy has lived a very plentiful life, I guess you could say. Poker, freaking stock market, and writer, musician. He's also a scientist. He's got a PhD, I think, something in the science realm as well. So this is a very, very interesting individual. And obviously, look, a smart individual when you've got all these accolades next to your name. It'll be interesting to see how that goes. And the other piece of news, thank you to Benji for reminding me to bring it up. Rick Bowness back with the Columbus Blue Jackets. I figured he would. He certainly wanted to come back, even though this team frustrated the living hell out of him, as we clearly saw at the end of the regular season with that final press conference after the Washington loss. But like I said, he wants to be part of the solution here and fix this in Columbus and work to get this team over the hump back in the playoffs. He said as much in the post-game press conference. He wants to be here to help change the culture with Columbus. And look, there's still a lot of work to do. They've got a lot of personnel decisions to be made. But you can't argue with the fact that this team was in even worse shape when he arrived. and he at least put them in a position to be right there and battling for a playoff spot at the end. So there was still plenty of good in the Rick Bowness time down the stretch with Columbus. And it'll be fascinating to see with a full training camp and a full season, Alex, how Rick Bowness can truly put his fingerprints on Columbus next season.
Yeah, I was just looking at a stat that said there's only been 4 teams now that have failed to make the playoffs since TNT and ESPN got the rights back. That's the Blackhawks, that's the Red Wings, that's the Sharks, and then the Columbus Blue Jackets. I think 3 of those teams possibly could make a change and make a run the next year, one of those being Columbus. I think with a full camp of Bowness, and he knows, like I said, what changes to make and everything that he said, for him to say that, for that franchise to bring him back means they're on board with making the right changes and making the right moves. And I think we do see that in Columbus. You know, whether it lasts, whether it turns into a great run or they become the Kings of the East, that's all, we have to wait and see. But I do think that they could improve enough to where they could be a team a year from now talking about getting ready for their own round 1, game 1. So that's great. And then the Maheta hiring, I didn't know much about him, but just basically you running off his resume, very, very interesting. And it's cool to see someone so well-rounded get a job like this. GMs, it can be all hockey all day, 24/7, 365. But knowing that this guy's a musician and, like you said, scientist and has other things, that sometimes that's a good thing. He can see hockey things from other perspectives at times. And I think that may be lost in some franchises. And so that may be something fresh and new. And to have a former fan grow up and become a GM, I think that's always a cool thing too. I think to have some kind of connection and heartbeat. One thing to be a professional and you can go anywhere you want, but to have some kind of connection where I was a kid when that team won a Stanley Cup in 95 and 2000, 2003, and then to work for that organization, I think that means something. He's gonna take some decisions to heart. He's gonna understand what it's like from a fan perspective to see certain things, but he's also gonna understand from a business perspective how to see things. So I think it's a good fit for New Jersey.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. Like I said, well, the reason I'm keeping the door open, it'll work, is because look, it was terrible with, and he did the best he could. But Tommy Fitzgerald, it was a rough go. And especially the last couple of years with some of the moves. So like I say, when you look at the previous GM and the next GM, there's a chance maybe for the door open to be an improved successful tenure for the new guy. And we'll see how that goes with New Jersey. All right. Stanley Cup playoffs are here. I'll ask you right off the top. This is excited and stoked and amped up. Forget the betting for a minute. Yeah. From a fan standpoint, watching good hockey, watching quality matchups, which does matter to me. This is as excited as I've been for an 8-pack of first-round series that I've seen in years. How about you? Absolutely.
Since before the pandemic, I mean, to see new faces, I think that's always the thing with any playoffs, right? And especially for us, we watch all the sports all the time, and you get to see these years where it's the same old matchups, the same old teams in the playoffs for 3, 4, 5 years in a row. That's going to happen, but whenever you get it broken up. And you start seeing new faces and new teams and different matchups. We were spared not having to see part 5 of Oilers Kings. We're all so happy about that. Not that we're saying, we don't want to see these teams in the playoffs. We want to see something fresh. And now you got the Ducks that are thrown in there. Team we haven't seen in ages. The Buffalo Sabres, first time in 15 years. Ottawa back in the playoffs for a second straight year. Montreal, like these teams that, there's people who, especially for those who maybe, started watching hockey when they started following us in the last 5, 6 years. You haven't seen these teams play in the playoffs. You saw the bulk of the run-of-the-mill, the same old squads, and now to see some new faces and new places, like I said, it's a lot of fun, and I'm already excited about it. Like I said, I'm more of a Western Conference fan, but I'm so excited for the Eastern Conference portion of the playoffs. I haven't been able to say that in a very long time. So, yeah, from a fan standpoint, it's as good as it gets. I mean, this is the greatest tournament in all of sports. And to see some new teams in it, that just makes it even more exciting.
Let's get into it. We will drop the puck on the NHL Stanley Cup Playoffs Saturday afternoon, 3:00 p.m. Eastern Time in Raleigh, North Kakalaki. David was hoping to be on the show today, but a family situation unfolded, so he sent me his picks. We're going to give out his picks, I should say, later in the show. I don't know if he'll be there, but I know he'll probably be at many Carolina home games here during the playoffs. But it's Ottawa and Carolina. We've got Carolina minus 170 in the series. Ottawa plus 140 here in the series. So let me backtrack to before the season. We did obviously a season preview show back in October. My pick to come out of the East, my pick to actually win the Stanley Cup was the Carolina Hurricanes way back early in the season. I had a Carolina-Vegas Stanley Cup final. And I always say I don't always love just immediate, because you're going to let what you've seen in the regular season maybe skew your decision-making a little bit. I don't always love just jumping off what I had preseason, but obviously teams change and things change, during the course of the season. When I look at Ottawa versus Carolina here, what's very fascinating about this matchup is you've got the Ottawa Senators really playing playoff-style hockey down the stretch, pedal to the metal to get in. Carolina kind of coasting into the playoffs. That's always a concern for some of these teams that haven't had everything on the line immediately. There's obviously the concern of Brandon Bussey, Freddie Anderson in net, where we've talked about it. As great as Bussey was this season, post-Olympic break, he wasn't nearly as sharp or as effective. And we know Frederik Andersen's had some ups and downs, but they do have the benefit of one of the best shot suppression teams in the NHL that doesn't give up a ton of high danger or a ton of shots on goal per game. Problem is, Ottawa kind of played a game like that as well down the stretch. They were also very good, as far as suppressing shots, not giving a ton of high danger looks to the opponent. So it's an interesting series here because both of these teams, the first thought to me is you've got both of these teams that don't give up a ton of shots, don't give up a ton of quality looks, played excellent. Hockey is fine. Both were puck possessors. They possessed the puck a lot. They controlled the flow in the majority of their games. Ottawa's out shooting the opponent a lot. Carolina's known for that, not only this season, but years past under Rod Brind'Amour. And because they don't give up a lot, it makes you think this probably could be a very low-scoring, tight-checking, under type of series. But it also, on the flip side, it's a series where how many chances, how many shots are you going to need maybe to beat these goaltenders on both sides? Because you've got the Bussey-Anderson concerns with Carolina. Bussey, no playoff experience, not as good down the stretch. Anderson is Anderson, and we've got concerns about him with the season he just had. But let's not act like there's not any concerns whatsoever with Linus Ullmark either for the Ottawa Senators. I know he had a good finishing stretch. I know he's had a pretty solid regular season as a starting goaltender in the NHL going back to the Boston Bruins days. But we haven't seen him in significant playoff action since a few years ago in that Boston series. I think it was 2022, 2023. Because remember, 2 years ago, it was Swayman that was in net for that entire playoffs for the Boston Bruins. It was 3 years ago. And of course, last year, Boston didn't make the playoffs. It was 3 years ago we saw Ullmark, and you're talking about a sub-900 save percentage for him in that playoff series. He did not play particularly well. Now, I know there was the element of he had some injuries in that season as well going into the playoff, but he didn't play great. So there's that element of what can you do in the postseason that we've got a question regarding Linus Ullmark too. So it's not fair to just paint Bussey and Anderson as and Carolina as the only team with goaltending questions here, because as good as Ullmark's been in the regular season, there's been some issues as far as playoff performance is concerned. So, I thought I was going to be on Ottawa. I thought for sure I'm going to look at Ottawa here. What I am going to do is I'm going to go 6-7 games. I know there's another series I'm doing that with, and I think it might be the same series that Alex is doing it with, the 6-7 game sprinkle. But I'm doing that with this series. I think if the Hurricanes win, Ottawa will push them here in this series. I'm not quite fully there yet with taking Ottawa to win the series because when you look at Carolina, it's certainly a team that I think when you look at the way they've played, the home ice could be a difference maker for them. That's a great building down there in Raleigh. And don't forget about the fact that first rounds have been no issue for Carolina. They've actually been a very good first round team. It's been the second round. It's been the conference finals in particular where they've been tripped up. So, at this price, I don't want Carolina at minus 170. I don't want to fully jump off the Carolina preseason opinion of them going deep and getting to the East Final and winning it. I think Ottawa's potentially live in this series, but I think it's going to be Carolina emerging in a tough, long series when it's all said and done. And I think when you look at the player props, not just that I'd be looking at here in this series, Dylan Cousins It's a guy that's obviously had a very good series. Someone to look at as far as making an impact. I think Shane Pinto is someone who's really developed as a good two-way player, someone that could have a little bit of a down the lineup impact here for the Ottawa Senators going into this series. And I think when you look at the Carolina Hurricanes, don't sleep on Jordan Martinook. This guy's been a playoff performer in the past. Jordan Staal, the captain. Obviously, there's Aho, there's Svechnikov, had a pretty good offensive playoffs last year. As well. But I'm starting to look toward, once again, Logan Stankoven. Now, there's the concern, a smaller player in the playoffs, they can knock him around a bit, lean on him physically, and he's not going to be able maybe to deliver. But those are definitely some players, and I know David will agree with me on this one. He's a big Nikishin fan. Don't be shocked if Nikishin, ends up making an impact offensively in this series here for the Carolina Hurricanes. But like I said, the price is too big for Carolina with how much I respect Ottawa. But at the end of the day, I think I see the Carolina Hurricanes surviving. The more I thought about it, Alex, it's just after Shabbat and Sanderson, who are great, by the way, and are going to have to be spectacular for this team in this series, there's some concerns about some of their depth on the blue line when it's all said and done. And it's going to be interesting to see how they're able to withstand that in this series. But, Alex, your thoughts on the East first round, Ottawa, Carolina?
I said it, a few times during the final months of the season when we had this race in the Eastern Conference. I said these wildcard teams have, played a lot of playoff level intensity hockey, and it may be a little tough for them to really get it going once it's the real deal, once the real deal's here. And you look at a team like Carolina, yet to lose in the first round under Rod Brind'Amour, as JD mentioned in the chat. This is a team that is well-seasoned in this particular avenue of the playoffs to take care of business. Now, the only pre-flop bet that I have Carolina to lead series 2-1 after 3 games. I got that plus 110 at FanDuel. That gives me an opening where I feel like Ottawa could win either game 2 or game 3. This is a series where I'll be mostly looking at game-by-game basis. But if it comes out to that point, let's say we're tied 1-1 as it heads to Ottawa, and I may be able to grab Carolina at a better adjusted price. That's the beauty of these books now. You can get, serious prices throughout. You don't have to just be, hamstrung and locked into what you bet right before the series starts. This is one that I'm going to be taking kind of from, like I said, a game-by-game basis, looking at storyboard mode. We'll talk about that. Not just looking at things game by game, but also period by period. Could some things trickle over from the third period or an overtime of game 2 into game 3, or when the venues change from game 2 to game 3, or game 4 to game 5. So there's a lot of that handicapping I think that's going to be involved in this. If I had to pick just straight up who wins and how many games, I'd say Carolina in 6. But like I said, I think there's just the veteran presence, and like I said, the defensive breakdowns with Ottawa, the defensive injuries. I think Ullmark will have a good outing in this series. Like I said, I think he was that him playing injured in Boston was just insane, and teams have to avoid that malpractice. Like I said, it's the 2 biggest spots that I can think of in the playoffs where you had malpractice of goaltender use. It's Boston in that game 1 series against Florida, and you can go all the way back to the 2015 Stanley Cup final. Ben Bishop playing with the torn groin against the Blackhawks. He had no business being in that series, and it honestly cost him, in my opinion. So teams have to avoid that. As much as you rely on your number 1 goalie, you cannot afford to play someone who's completely broken down in that spot. Now, his health is fine, but between the years has been a bit of an issue for Ullmark. So you kind of wonder where could that factor in. But I think Carolina takes care of business in this first round, and then we start to see the question marks of usual. Is it going to be Bussy or Anderson? That's going to be the focal point too, to see which goalie gets the nod and which goalie can take the reins. If they can have Bussy can have a huge series and look like he did in October, November of this year, then Freddie Anderson's just going to be sitting down for a while, and that's fine, because if you want your best goaltender, and the best Carolina goaltender of the last 10 years was early season Brandon Bussy, in my opinion. So I think that could be the big X factor here, and I like Carolina to advance the second round.
All right, liking Carolina to advance. As far as I was just going to get there with some of the props that I've got my eye on. I'm going lighter this year with the series long, player props like goal leader and point leader. It was a mixed bag, results last year. So we're really treading cautiously with it this year. But when you look at this particular series here with Ottawa, Carolina, most goals, you've got Jarvis plus 425, Stützle plus 500, Batherson plus 750. Batherson does have good success against Anderson, says Jonathan in the chat. So if you buy into the player having success against a specific goalie, he could be someone worth a look. But Dylan Cousins 12-1. Someone I get, Ehlers at 14-1 for sure, 100%. That's probably the one I like the most in this series. Nikolai Ehlers was great for Winnipeg last year in the playoffs. You remember how he was for the Jets last year? Nikolai Ehlers. Not to mention, boy, did this guy get comfortable down the stretch of the playoffs, or the regular season for Carolina. Played really well in the second half. He had a slow start too, Nikolai Ehlers. Don't forget that. And the way he came on down the stretch of the regular season, could tell he was getting comfortable. He went on a tear for them. Let's not forget, like I said last year, 8 playoff games with Winnipeg. He ended up having 7 points, 5 goals, 2 assists. And again, came on strong this season down the stretch with the Carolina Hurricanes. So Nikolai Ehlers is great value there, 100%, as far as plus 1,400 with the leading goal scorer market for this series. Definitely worth a look. All right, next up, we've got in the West, first round matchup. This is a 5:45, actually, I think, 5:45 p.m. Eastern start time. We've got Dallas minus 120 as a slight favorite here in this series against the Minnesota Wild. As far as this one goes between these two teams, I think Minnesota is certainly going to give Dallas a tougher series. How can they not? I mean, you like the roster more. You certainly like what they can do on the blue line, led by Quinn Hughes and Brock Faber quite a bit this year, the Minnesota Wild. I am concerned about, are you going to get enough scoring punch from the third and the fourth line a little bit? That is a concern. But what's bad news for the Minnesota Wild is they've first round issues, obviously, for a decade. This has been a round that has just been a nightmare for them, being able to get out of the opening round. And it's a Dallas Stars team that is, they've gotten to the conference finals 3 straight seasons. They've obviously had success head-to-head in the postseason against the Minnesota Wild as well. And it looks like, based on what I've seen earlier today, they're getting healthier. Now, Roope Hintz may not be ready for Game 1, but it sure looks like Miro Heiskanen will be. He was on the ice, and he was paired with Esa Lindell on the top pair for the Dallas Stars in practice earlier today. So it's starting to look like he will be good, and all systems go for Game 1 of this series. And obviously, you're talking about a tremendous defenseman at both ends of the ice, and you're talking about someone that could certainly swing the series much more toward Dallas if he plays, because all of a sudden you got Lindell, Heiskanen, Harley, Lundqvist, Bischel, and Myers likely as your 6 defensemen. Labushkin, Petrovic, Capobianco, the extras. Like I said, I don't think Hintz will be ready to go for Game 1, but having Miro back there on the blue line certainly going to be a huge boost to this Dallas Stars team. I took Dallas minus 120 in this series price, and a little sprinkle to me on Dallas exact result in 6. It's kind of what I have in mind here. Dallas in 6 to finish things on. How many times have we seen a Minnesota season end at home? In the formerly XL Energy Center, but now obviously the Grand Casino Arena. We've seen it a lot. I think this is going to be a grind of a series. I do. I don't think this is going to be easy for Dallas. I think these are going to be competitive games. I think Minnesota is going to be in these games. At the end of the day, there's a little element of lack of trust for me with Philip Gustafsson based on some of the stuff we saw, and he will get the start in Game 1. They're going to defer to the veteran, not Jesper Wallstedt. There's some concern about him. There's some concern about the reliance on the power play at times for the Minnesota Wild. Will they be able to produce enough here at even strength? But I think when you look at the situation with the power play and the reliance on it, could be an issue. Dallas probably a little bit more ability to make an impact as far as even strength 5-on-5 play is concerned in this series. And of course, we've just seen sometimes sometimes you could say a franchise is due, and if you want to say that to make a case for Minnesota, it's certainly true. And I do agree with it. This is the best Minnesota team they've put on the ice in the playoffs in a handful of years. There's no question. And I think they're going to be a pain in the neck, but I can't bring myself to bet Minnesota yet. I just can't. Against a Dallas team that has been here, done that, won playoff series, won a first round, won a second round multiple times over the years. So I'm going to go with Dallas here, minus 120. And at FanDuel, just a small exact series sprinkle on Dallas and 6, which is plus 500 at FanDuel. I could see that totally being an exact number of games result in favor of the Dallas Stars in this series. Alex, I know the locals there are hoping for something different as far as an outcome here this year in the first round. What do you think, Minnesota, Dallas?
Yeah, it's that same old familiar feeling down here in St. Paul where, everyone's excited, but everyone's tempering their expectations because they know what has happened in each of the last, 10 appearances that they've made in the playoffs. You look at Hockey Reference and it just says lost NHL first round, lost NHL first round. The year they missed the playoffs, lost in the qualifying round, lost in the first round. It's the same old, same old. Just matters how many games and who they play. And we've seen Dallas specifically beat this Wild team in 6 games twice over that course of that span. I think that happens here again. But like you said, Minnesota, this is a different animal. This is a different team. They don't look to be just as completely just laissez-faire like they did in some of the previous series. They have solid coaching. They have, quality goaltending. I think Jesper Wallstedt, in my opinion, is going to be an absolute star in this league, even though he had a rough second half. We saw what he can do in the first half of the season. The reason why Minnesota is in the playoffs is because of mostly how Jesper Wallstedt and this team played in the first half of the year. The power play was fantastic. When they had everything clicking on all cylinders, this looked like a very dangerous hockey team. Now, here's the problem. You bring in Quinn Hughes. Quinn Hughes automatically becomes the best player in your team. Nothing wrong with that. But also when you're paying $17 million to Kirill Kaprizov, he's got to step up and be more consistent. And he looked like his kind of old self in the last couple of years where, there were nights where you couldn't find him with a telescope. There were nights where he was trying to do too much or he was doing too little with the puck. That has to change. You look at, Gustafsson, for as well as he's played at times, down the stretch, he struggled a little bit. It was actually Wallstedt who looked like the better of the two goalies, but now John Hines is obviously going to go with the veteran here. But it opens up that door of how long of a leash do you give Philip Gustafsson if he struggles? If game one's an up and down kind of a game, and then game 2, things slow down, but it's more to Dallas's favor, then what do you do when you come home? Do you go to Wallstedt or do you still stick with the veteran? So those are always tricky spots when teams have that, when teams have been, and we talk about this now in this 1A, 1B system of goaltending. You don't really always have that lockdown, shutdown, hey, this is our guy for the playoffs. And the teams that win, they do. Teams that win figure that out quickly within the first 2 to 3 games. This is our guy. This is who we're riding till death do us part. And Minnesota's going to have to kind of ask themselves that question depending on how those first couple of games go. Now, I have a list of bets that support Dallas winning this series. We'll start with just Dallas winning the series on its own, minus 115. I got that at Bet Online. It's literally the first thing that I bet as soon as that market opened. Got that for a half a unit. Another half unit play on Stars. Like I said, the exact series, 4-2 plus 500 was the best price I found available at FanDuel with that spot. Also have a little piece of series exactly ending in 6 games at plus 200. I like Stars to win game 1 and to win the series. Got that at plus 165. The one wild bet that I do have, and it's the only player prop that I have the entire postseason as far as pre-series. Quinn Hughes to score 3 goals in the series. Now this was at 50-1 at DraftKings the other day. Obviously, other people follow along suit. Now it's down to 25-1 because that's just an insane price. The best fucking player on the team to get 3 goals in what I believe will be 6 games, I think he should be able to do that. And to get that 51 was a blessing, but still a great price at 25-1. And we're going back to it again. It's worked out with Dallas against the Jets in the second round last season. We're going with an exact order bet. So what this means is I'm betting how each game will finish through the series for a big price. This was at FanDuel. This is at 45-1. I like Dallas to win games 1 and 2, Minnesota to win game 3, Dallas to win Game 4, Minnesota to win Game 5, and Stars to close it out here in St. Paul in Game 6. That's a 45-1 ticket.
There you go. And Alex, very familiar with that type of bet before, the exact series result where it's going game by game, picking who's going to win each individual game. And if you get the sequence exactly correct, boy, oh boy, you cash a big plus price if that is indeed the case. Yeah, absolutely. Last year, I remember the Vegas series, no doubt. It was those two and not a lot of support. And that's always the concern with Minnesota. Like when you look at them, you're obviously going to need Kaprizov, Boldy, Eriksson, Hartman, even Hartman now if he's going to start the series on the top line centering it. And I do think he could be someone worth a look as far as, the number of goals they score in the series. There's a couple. Hartman would be one from Minnesota. If you look at DraftKings and their prices going into the series, Hartman maybe for 3+ goals at plus 370. But the number one for me as far as person I'm targeting. Now, when you look at the Dallas Stars, obviously you're talking about Mikko Rantanen was excellent in the playoffs, especially in the Colorado series last year. Wyatt Johnston, last year a little quieter in the playoffs, but it was 2 years ago. He had the big playoff series for the Dallas Stars, and he was great, and he really played well down the stretch. So I'm bullish on what we've seen out of Wyatt Johnston going into the playoffs. Sam Steele is going to be someone I can tell I'm going to be betting a few times game to game with goal props as he remains on that top line. There's going to be great value. But the one that I like pre-series, and I will absolutely be on this particular player every game to score a goal with the way he played down the stretch, is Mavrik Bourque, 100%. Mavrik Bourque was on a heater down the stretch to finish the regular season for the Dallas Stars because of Hintz not being available to begin the series. He's absolutely going to stick in the top 6 forward group to begin this series for the Dallas Stars. And again, finish the regular season with 4 goals and 6 points in the last 3 games. So this is a guy that was feeling it. So I like it. Plus, I know DraftKings has it 3+ goals, Mavrik Bourque, at a very, very strong price of plus 900 for 3 goals in the series or more from Mavrik Bourque. That's absolutely one of my favorite value bets of the entire first round right there as far as player props. 3 goals or more, Mavrik Bourque plus 900. And if you want to get a little nuts, because this is a little bit of a longer shot expecting this to happen, 100-1 leading the series in goals, Mavrik Bourque. Now again, why not? A little dabble in that. But I think certainly Mavrik Bourque. Yeah, I wanted the 2+2, Jonathan. No shit. At DraftKings, they're not offering 2+ goals for some reason this year. It's 1 goal and then 3 and then 5. It's like an increment, odd number increments for some reason, which is kind of frustrating. So that would have been the one I would have loved even more. You wouldn't get as good of a price, but I think absolutely he could get 2 goals in the series. But I'll take a shot at I'm still going to take a swing at the 3+ goals with the way he was ripping it down the stretch for the Dallas Stars. So that's Mavrik Bourque, 3+ goals, plus 900 DraftKings.
FanDuel has 2+ goals, but it's plus 340. I mean, at that point, you might as well you're probably going to get better. This is the price you're going to get for him every game. Somewhere in the early bargain range of 300 to 320.
That's true. I might still get in on that, as I didn't know FanDuel had the 2+ goals. Thank you for pointing that out. But yeah, 2+ goals at plus 340 for Mavrik Bourque in the series. I'll dabble in that. I like the value at the plus 900. I think it's very possible he can get 3 goals in this series for the Dallas Stars. And again, because of the absence of Hintz, he's going to get certainly an increased role. It'll be interesting. I do think that this is going to be a tougher series for Dallas. This is not going to be a cakewalk. Like in years past, we've loved Dallas in 5 in this matchup against Minnesota. No, I think Minnesota is going to push them. Minnesota is going to win a couple of games. I almost got there with a 7-gamer, but I stopped short at 6. I decided to land on 6, but 7 wouldn't totally shock me either. But I just ended up going with Dallas here in 6. All right, next up, we've got the Battle of Pennsylvania, Keystone State rivalry matchup. And NHL and Stanley Cup playoff hockey is better when these two teams are going head-to-head. Philadelphia Flyers, Pittsburgh Penguins, Pittsburgh minus 140 series favorites. This one, Pittsburgh, to me, has really at times this year impressed me. Dan Muse has done a great job. Their offense is absolutely electric. And their offense is good enough to win games alone. They have been able to overcome defensive deficiencies at times and mediocre goaltending from both Stuart Skinner, and Artur Shilovs, because they've been able to just flat out put the puck in the net. When you got guys like Crosby and Rust and Ricard Raquel, who is on fire down the stretch, and Anthony Mantha, who steps up with a huge second half to the season. And, of course, Igor Shinikov, ever since they got him from Columbus. He's given them another element offensively. Erik Karlsson looks like he's having more fun playing hockey this year than he has in a very long time. And he's played excellent offensively. He's even played a little bit better defensively. It's still not his strong suit, but he's even played a little bit better defensively going in, obviously, to this series. And their offense is good enough to win them this series, especially when you factor in that at times down the stretch, the Flyer penalty kill let them down. I remember that Detroit game where the power play just devoured Philadelphia, a team that had been good on the penalty kill all year. And then you throw in the other side of the equation, the Flyer power play had been a problem all year. So special teams is the biggest concern I've got for the Flyers here. Pittsburgh could have that edge here in that particular matchup. But at the end of the day, you've got a Philadelphia team. You look at the coach, Rick Tocchet, took Vancouver his very first season into the playoffs, and not just into the playoffs, won the first round, took the Edmonton Oilers, the eventual Western Conference champions, to 7 games in the second round. He's shown an ability to win a playoff series or two and almost knocked off the Edmonton Oilers, who, of course, have been to the Stanley Cup final each of the last 2 years. That's how close he got with Vancouver a couple of years ago, Rick Tocchet. So when you factor in all that, and Dan Muse is here for the very first time, it's weird because the coaching staff on Philadelphia has a little bit more of that playoff experience, especially at the head coaching spot. But probably the more veteran roster is definitely Pittsburgh when you factor in, all those players that have Stanley Cups, like a Crosby, like a Malkin, and a Letang on the back end, no question. And Crosby has dominated the Flyers, as Robert alludes to in the chat. He has had great success, playoffs, regular season, you name it, against the Philadelphia Flyers. But I think there's a little value on the Philadelphia side, plus 120. I don't love it. This is going to be a small bet for me, Flyers to win the series, plus 120. I just love what I've seen from Dan Vladar. And to me, if you were asking me of the goaltenders for both of these teams, which one would I take in a playoff series right now? And I know Skinner's been to a Stanley Cup final twice, and he's very capable. No question. But right now, I would take Dan Vladar. They are not in the playoffs without him. He's been spectacular for the Philadelphia Flyers in net. I like what we've seen from him. One thing, too, that's very interesting is how this Flyers team, you were wondering with putting in a Porter Martone down the stretch, putting in more of a youth movement down the stretch, how that would affect the team. It affected the team in a positive, not a negative. Porter Martone was tremendous in his last few games. Now, I know this is his first NHL Stanley Cup playoff tour of duty. We'll see how he can handle it. Still a young kid. But, boy, he didn't look one bit out of place, looked very comfortable with the puck, play made. Made plays with the puck, scored himself. Like I said, he did all kinds of great things. And going to more of the younger guys down the stretch really benefited the Philadelphia Flyers as well. So this is a great series. This is going to be a physical series, too. I just have that feeling. Obviously, you're talking about 2 in-state rivals going head-to-head. This was a tough one for me to pick because there's a lot of that last dance mentality and aura with Pittsburgh, and a lot of that karma is something I don't love betting against. Trying to get this one last cup run, potentially one last cup run for a team like the Pittsburgh Penguins. But I think the value is a little bit here with Philly at plus 120, but even more than that, and I know Alex will be in agreement with me here because I know I saw his picks already, so he's right there with me. We're doing the 6-game, 7-game sprinkle here in this series. This is going to be long. This is going to be close. This is going to be competitive. And I think it's going to go potentially the distance. And again, you can do this at FanDuel. You can do this at DraftKings. But the total games in the series, you can get 6 games, 7 games, both of them around that plus 200 price. And all you have to do is it just has to go 6 or 7. Doesn't matter which one, and you're going to get a profit out of it. with both of them at plus 200. It is a staple of series betting that we have made known on this show for years now. If we think it's going to be a very competitive, very long series, and I think both of us, Alex, we feel that way about the Keystone State Battle of Pennsylvania.
Yeah, absolutely. This is going to be just fun hockey, I believe. I think this is going to be one of the more exciting series of possibly the whole damn postseason. And we've had that in years where like, wow, you're looking back at the end of the conference finals or the cup finals, like, oh yeah, but that first round series was fantastic. I think this could be one of those series for sure. So now we do the 6-7 game split a little differently. Ian has, if I'm not mistaken, you have series to end in 6 and series to end in 7 for anybody, right? Plus
right.
205 plus
exactly.
215 is at DraftKings the best price. I take it a little step further and I split one unit amongst 4 plays. Penguins to win 4-2, Penguins to win 4-3, Flyers to win 4-2, and Flyers to win 4-3. Now, I'm looking at prices anywhere from as low as plus 425 for Penguins to win it in 7 to as high as Flyers to win it plus 650 in 7. You're not going to get those prices betting those teams individually in game 6 or game 7. So what I've set myself up for is if this series is tied 2 games apiece, I don't have to touch another side the rest of the way. And I'm looking at units cashing in. We're talking about at least 6 units, depending on how any of these 4 quadrants can split. So that's the way that I like to build a 6-7 game split. That's the way that I have played that because I think this is going to be a close game, a close series. I think every game could be very close. I didn't put it on the list, but I will take a small sprinkle with 3 games specifically to go to overtime. Plus 800, you can get that over at BetMGM. It would not shock me to see some of these games go overtime, couple of maybe double overtime games. We were joking on the BetCast. Hopefully we don't see a repeat of 2000 where you got the old 5 overtime game thrown in there from way back in the day. But I think this is going to be close. It's going to be physical. Like you said, you've got young, hungry guys in Philly against old vets trying to make that run with Pittsburgh. I think that this is going to make for a great clash and some really good hockey here. So it's going to be tight. It's going to be a long one. But I am heavy on the 6-game, 7-game split with a little sprinkle of 3 games to go to overtime.
Just a good enough price to bet all 3 of them in this series because I do think this series, if Philly has their way, they want a little more of the 3-1, 3-2 variety of hockey. But we know Pittsburgh was one of the strongest over teams down the stretch of the regular season. So, and for some reason we've seen Philly-Pittsburgh just explode on the scoreboard. So I'm going to defer to them. Pittsburgh probably getting this into a more of a up and down, higher scoring type of series. Not to mention, if I'm not mistaken, didn't Vancouver Edmonton turn out to be that kind of series with Tocchet a couple of years ago? I know Tocchet and Vancouver wanted to slow that sucker down too, and they really couldn't. That series ended up having a lot of goals in it. So I have a feeling this probably will be a higher scoring series. It's going to be rough, physical. It probably means more penalties. And I'm going to do my usual diatribe. What does more penalties mean? It means more power plays. What does more power plays mean? It means more chances for goals. So there you go. That could be that kind of series. But at FanDuel, the 2+ goal market in this series, you got to lay just small prices with all 3. Mantha minus 110 for Pittsburgh, Shinikov minus 125 for Pittsburgh, and Porter Martone minus 125 for Philly. I do like all 3. I think it's very plausible all 3 can get 2 goals minimum here in this series because Shinikov was great down the stretch. Since they got him really from Columbus. Mantha you don't need to say too much about what he's been able to do. He was outstanding. And then, of course, Martone down the stretch was impactful, not just goal scoring, but especially, setting up his teammates. He had 10 points, by the way, in 9 games down the stretch, Porter Martone. That's damn impressive, obviously, for a guy that's obviously straight out of college and was able to make an impact right away for the Philadelphia Flyers. But this is a fascinating series. There's no question. It'll be fun to see how it ends up playing out. One thing to note here, as far as, there are a lot of people that make a big deal of the regular season series, and it's good to know that. And we're going to talk about the next series, LA Colorado, where it was all one team over the other. But at the same point in time, it's not always a harbinger of things to come. It's very, very important to note that. There's been times I've seen regular season dominance for one team over the other. Playoffs arrive, and the script is flipped. Yeah. So, like I said, it's good to know, be aware of it, but you don't always want to use it as gospel, as the way you should be betting come playoff time, for no doubt. All right, let's turn to the West. Back to the West. This series starts Sunday afternoon. It's going to be actually a 1 p.m. local start here in Denver. We got the LA Kings, Colorado Avalanche. Colorado minus 530 series favorites, massive series favorites. In fact, the biggest series favorite on the board here in the first round. LA, a year removed from just ripping our hearts out and our bankrolls for a decent chunk last year against the Edmonton Oilers. And this year, look, got into the playoffs, have played playoff-style hockey for sure. That's a benefit. There's been an element of coasting. I'll say that one thing about LA in this series, I wouldn't be totally shocked if they won Game 1. I wouldn't be totally shocked by that if they won Game 1. But that might be all they're getting in this particular series. And I know Anton Forsberg should get the start here for the LA Kings. He was better than Darcy Kemper down the stretch, but he's going to have to deal with this Colorado team that's got obviously all kinds of firepower up front, on the back end, the power play, which can be absolutely lethal, and an LA Kings team that, let's be honest, it's not that defensive team they were years ago. They make mistakes, and I fear the speed quotient most of all for LA in this series. Colorado attacks in waves. Colorado can be relentless, and their speed, is just so much more team-wide, top to bottom, than Los Angeles. And what I even shudder about more for LA in this series is the composition of their blue line here in this series against a team like Colorado. Mikey Anderson gives it his all. Brant Clark's got a bright future. But outside of that, you've got Doughty, old, can't skate like he once did. Edmondson, old, not a great skater. Dumoulin, old, not a great skater. Ceci, same damn thing. That's really problematic in a series like this against the Colorado Avalanche right now. So I think it's going to be a tough series for LA. Colorado should make quick work of Los Angeles. And look, I think the biggest concern and fear I've had in the past with Colorado is goaltending, but I don't have many concerns right now because I think we're going to see Scott Wedgwood, and Scott Wedgwood's given me very little reason to doubt him right now. He had a great season. I think he's ready for this. And Colorado's going to be one of these teams where they don't need phenomenal goaltending. They just need to don't allow the shit goal. Don't allow the DQ Dairy Queen softie, and you'll be fine. Make the saves you're supposed to, because the rest of this team has the capability of taking care of the rest for you. And I think that's what it's going to be. The only bet I've got on this series, and you can take a look at FanDuel. I'll just give you the FanDuel price on this right now. The only single bet that I've got on this series is Colorado 4-1 plus 250. Colorado and 5 plus 250. That's the only bet I've got on this series. Obviously, I'm not going to take anything with the series price. But I will say this. LA, the one game that they'll either win Game 3 at home or they'll win Game 1 on Sunday. When I actually think it's a better chance they win Game 1 on Sunday because their home ice record, as we know, a disaster. That's a team that we don't trust at home. I could easily see Colorado going into LA and winning Game 3 and Game 4 there at the Crypto.com arena. Game 1's the one they've got a chance to steal, Los Angeles, because they're the team that's been playing pedal to the metal to get into the playoffs. Colorado's a team that's been kind of, they just haven't had a lot at stake. They just haven't had a lot on the line here down the stretch. But like I said, that's about all I see LA getting. They maybe win Game 1, and if they don't, maybe they go back home down 2-0 and they win Game 3. But I only see them getting 1. In this series. And the bet that I've got is Colorado and 5 plus 250. Alex, Kings and Avalanche.
So we're right there together. I have Avalanche 4-1 as well, plus 250. Sprinkle a little bit more. I got exact 5 games plus 210. And I went exact order with this as well. I think the Kings win Game 3 back at home. I think with the early start time, and like you said, the fact that LA has been playing up-tempo hockey for a while, Colorado has just been kind of going through the motions. I think the Avs wake up on Sunday and show LA the reason why they are the best team in the Western Conference, if not the whole league. And I think they impose their will those first 2 games. I think coming back home, that's where we see the Kings with their desperate rally, get that Game 3 win, and then Avs take back over avenge that loss, and then wrap it up in 5. So that's the way I'm betting it. Avs game 1, Avs game 2, Kings win game 3, and Avs win game 4, game 5. That exact order bet is 10-1 over at FanDuel.
There we go. Good stuff. I will say there's one Kings player I like in this series because he's got the physical frame. He's great down the stretch. He ended up having 16 points, 11 goals, 5 assists in the last 16 games entering the playoffs, and that's Quinton Byfield. I really liked his game down the stretch for LA, and boy, they're going to need every ounce of his production in this series to be competitive. And I'm not even talking about winning the series anymore, just to be competitive here against the Colorado Avalanche. But he certainly played well down the stretch for the Kings. We know there's capability of him doing that for sure. Not to mention, I'm just going to go back and take a quick peek there as far as last year and the numbers that we saw. But I'm pretty sure, too, not a bad series he had against Edmonton last year off the top of my head. So, like I said, Quinton Byfield's definitely going to be someone that they are going to need to be able to perform at a pretty high level here in this series for the Los Angeles Kings, and definitely think he could be capable of it. But like I said, all right, as far as other looks here in this series in the goal prop market here, Parker, do we have to keep betting Parker Kelly? I'm waiting for this friggin' guy to slow down scoring, and it's not happening. So it's almost like you you maybe take a shot here as far as Parker Kelly is concerned with goal scoring, because he just has been able to keep on finding the back of the net here for this Colorado Avalanche team down the stretch. We'll see if that obviously continues here in this series, but I'm just looking at the marketplace right now. Yeah, I was hoping we get maybe a steal with him at 1 goal, but it's still too pricey for him to score 1 goal, minus 280. But no doubt he has been good down the stretch. Landeskog, there's a guy that's still the captain. He's a guy that can elevate in the big games. So I could see this being kind of a series where Gabe Landeskog puts his fingerprints all over this series and all over the playoff run, really, for the Colorado Avalanche from a goal-scoring standpoint as well. So like I said, he'd be someone that I think's got the chance to make an impact here in this series. All right, we go to the East. Tampa Bay hosting Montreal, and boy, the last time we saw them play, it got physical, it got rough, and it'll be interesting to see if those bitter feelings and that ill will is right there from the hop here, which you think it's got the chance it could be here in this series when they start on Sunday. We've got Tampa Bay minus 260 favorites here in this series. Again, game 1 Sunday at 5:45 p.m. Eastern. There's going to be a little bit of an overlap between game 1 of this series and the start of Boston-Buffalo, which will be the Sunday night game. Remember, but there won't be no network conflict, though, because one's on TNT, the other's on ESPN. So if you want to watch both of them, you'll be able to. There's going to be no issues with that. This one, there is that element of can the Habs win playoff hockey? When it gets physical, when it gets tough, are they going to be able to roll up their sleeves and win that way? We know last year was a bit of a learning experience for them, losing to the Washington Capitals. I think they're in a better frame of mind, and I certainly like the way physically they pushed back at Tampa Bay when they tried to, insert their physical dominance over Montreal in that last regular season game. The Noah Dobson injury is significant. I would have been more bullish on Montreal if he was there, but it's a big loss, especially because he was finally really starting to gain a nice little chemistry on that back end with Mike Matheson, the veteran. And then they were playing well, and then all of a sudden, here's the Dobson injury down the stretch, and now there's going to be some shakeups back there. Caden Gooley, the good news is, yes, Caden Gooley coming back late in the regular season. Boy, do they need that now with Noah Dobson out. But Gooley, Matheson, Lane Hudson, obviously. And then you've got Carrier, Jaden Struble, Arbor Jacki. There's been rumblings. Maybe they give David Reinbacher, their former first-round pick, maybe a look in this series on the blue line as well. But the Noah Dobson injury does hurt Montreal's chances a little bit here in this series. Up front, not many concerns. We know there's the ability to put the puck in the net with Montreal, starting with Cole Caulfield and his line, obviously. Cole Caulfield, Nick Suzuki, Uri Slavkovsky. You don't want to sleep on Newhook, Demidov, and Tessier, especially Newhook and Demidov down the stretch. They started to get it rolling. Zach Bolduc had a frustrating year for the Montreal Canadiens, considering what he did in St. Louis, but he's someone I think that could maybe make more of an impact than people think. I know you've mentioned him, a great two-way player. Oliver Kapanen, we've talked about throughout the season, as far as a guy that can make a bit of a difference here for Montreal at both ends of the ice, can chip in a little bit offensively. They're going to hope that the return of Philip Deneau during the season from LA, gives them that, that shutdown center presence that they're looking for, to help them against teams like Tampa Bay, and should they advance beyond that throughout the playoff run. When you look at Tampa Bay, Victor Hedman, I wouldn't expect to see him. He's still on this personal leave, whatever it is. I don't expect to see him ready to go here in the playoffs to begin, and that's a shame. But Darren Radish has been the new Victor Hedman this season for the Lightning. He's been brilliant, quarterback in the power play, scoring goals, piling up points, doing really all that heavy lifting at the offensive end that Victor Hedman did. Is he as good defensively yet as Hedman was? No. But boy, oh boy, offensively, he's got the gifts. Moser, McDonough, Chernak, Charles-Edouard Dastu, Emil Lilleberg, rounding out the blue line for Tampa Bay. It looks like, as far as their forward group, fairly healthy going into this playoff series. This one, this one was hard for me. This one was hard for me because Tampa Bay, to me, as home ice, which is huge. I think Montreal would have had a better chance, probably, to win this series had Montreal had home ice, and the Bell Center started this series there in Game 1 and in Game 2. Jakub Dobiš is going to be the Game 1 starter. There's no question about it. Played excellent in the second half of the season. And then, of course, you've got Andrei Vasilevskiy on the other side, who we know when he's on his game, he can be as good as anybody. But I go back and I look at the last few years, and I made sure I did this. I'm like, when I think about the last few years since they made those Stanley Cup final appearances, off the top of my head, I do not think it was great for Andrei Vasilevskiy and his play in the playoffs. And I went back and looked. He's had 3 straight sub-900 save percentage seasons in the playoffs. 3 straight, Andrei Vasilevskiy. Now, last year, we know they got bounced by Florida. 2 years ago, it was nothing special. Like, we have not seen him be vintage, on top of his game, Andrei Vasilevskiy, the last 3 playoff seasons. It's been hard to explain it, hard to figure out why that is. And obviously, down the stretch of the regular season, there was some good, there was some bad when it comes to Andrei Vasilevskiy for the Tampa Bay Lightning. But like I said, it's he's going to have to show it here in this playoff series, because if you, again, go back and look at last year, 2 years ago, and 3 years ago, his save percentage, nothing to write home about. And this is still a Montreal Canadiens team. And one thing Tampa Bay, too, is they've really made it known that we want to take a page out of the Florida Panthers playbook and play physical. Well, you better play, to the line. You'd better not play crossing the line, because if you take penalties, man, in this series against this Montreal team, even though their power play, quite honestly, down the stretch, kind of disappointing and underwhelming for Montreal, and Montreal fans are screaming at their TV every night for Lane Hutson to shoot the fucking puck more, and he does. He does. I mean, he is just way too much is he deferring to the pass right now. There's no question. And so he's got to make it, he's got to remind himself in his head, easier said than done for a guy that can pass the puck like Lane Hutson can. You got to shoot it, man, because the penalty killers are going to be able to know what you're doing before you do it yourself. And that's passing the puck. You got to shoot it. You've got to at least put it in their minds that there's the potential of a shot coming from you. And we didn't see that often enough from Lane Hutson there down the stretch. So that was part of the many reasons why the power play maybe not nearly as good down the stretch. But I ended up with the slightest of leans here and a small bet only. I ended up with Montreal plus 210. I'm going to take that shot with them here in this game. What clinched it for me was seeing Vasilevskiy's save percentage in the realm where that's not what we expect when he's on his game. Now, does he turn it around this year? He very well could. But like I said, I think this is a Tampa Bay team that also down the stretch, you could say maybe disinterested, didn't care too much about winning the Atlantic, Didn't love their performance down the stretch. Again, this is more so about the price than anything. Give me Tampa Bay minus 140 or minus 150. I'll sing a different tune and probably take Tampa in this series. But minus 260 is a little wide for me in this series that I think at plus 210. We'll get involved with a small bet here on the Habs. Great series, though. Looking forward to it. Alex, what do you think? Montreal, Tampa Bay.
Yeah, I apologize to anyone who didn't jump along with me in September when I said Montreal bet them to lose in the first round and the process of elimination bets at FanDuel early in September, because I now have basically a plus 230 ticket holding on the Tampa Bay Lightning in this spot. And so that makes things, kind of, status quo for me. I don't have to really do much in this series. I can wait for Tampa to win game one, which I do feel that they will. And now I can grab Montreal 250, 260. And I've got, the same, price going both ways. I just let it roll from there on out if I choose to. But I do think Tampa Bay shows up in this series and wins it. I think they're going to impose their physical will on Montreal like we saw them do against everybody they played like the last 2 weeks of the season. And I think Vasilevsky, it wasn't all him the last three postseasons. It was that Tampa Bay team too. You go all the way back to where they played Toronto, and we all felt like that was going to be the year that Toronto finally breaks that streak of getting bounced out of the first round. They did so 4-2. And then you had the buzzsaw that was the Florida Panthers the last two seasons. And, keep in mind, they were riding off of their momentum of when they got knocked out and swept famously a few seasons before that against Tampa Bay. So they had, of course, a big old X on the back of number 88. I don't think that's going to be the case so much in this series. I think we see vintage playoff Vasilevsky. I think we see him steal a couple of games here. And I think Tampa Bay wins the series 4-2. So I did take a small sprinkle of that over at FanDuel plus 380.
There we go. Good stuff. Like I said, I'm very excited about this series. And don't forget how physical and nasty Montreal-Washington turned out to be. So, there's this talk that Montreal can't play, physical hockey, but that series turned into a nasty affair. We all remember the Tom Wilson scrap into the penalty box there during that game, during that series as well. This is going to be a physical series, and Montreal showed, hey, we'll push back. And look, as far as their size, there's other teams that are bigger than them, including Tampa Bay, but I like that they didn't back down, especially last year against Washington, learning experience, losing in the first round. I was totally on board with Montreal losing in the first round last year because they were just getting a taste of it for the first time. Maybe it's still not quite there. And look, Tampa's a team that's been excellent for over a decade, that maybe they're still not quite ready, but I think they're a little bit more ready to maybe take that next step this year. And that's enough for me at plus 210 to get involved a little bit. Should be an interesting series, though. A couple things, though, as far as the props. Here's one that stands. Cirelli's going to be a bigger offensive. Now, we know the defensive responsibilities for sure, but and we know Rachel was right on this right away about how he's been terrific as far as generating chances. The puck just wasn't going in. Look for him maybe to have a better series than people think. This could be a series, too, where if you look at some depth players, they're going to need some of their depth players. I mentioned Zach Bolduc, maybe Josh Anderson, too, because Josh Anderson, picked things up at least a little bit down the stretch. So a couple of those players from Montreal could make a difference. My number one prop here, like we obviously know Point and Kucherov. Brandon Hagel, now that he's back, we assume he's healthy and ready to go. He can make an impact. But for me, this is the old man, Corey Perry, man. Corey Perry, don't forget what he did last year for the Edmonton Oilers. Now, I know he played some of those playoffs with McDavid, but don't forget what Corey Perry did in the playoffs last year for the Edmonton Oilers. And he is the poster child for someone that elevates constantly in the Stanley Cup playoffs, even in his 40s now. So Corey Perry, as far as game-to-game props, game-to-game goal scorer props in this series for Tampa Bay, I've definitely got interest there. And also when you look at the, for instance, on FanDuel here, I think for Perry here, as far as the goal props for the series here are concerned, you can get Corey Perry at a very reasonable minus 130 at FanDuel just for the 2 goals. He can get 2 goals in this series, 100%, especially after what he did. 3 goals plus 600, says Myron. That's even better. Like, I'm going to dabble in both of those here. Corey Perry's just one of those players. Doesn't matter. He might be old as Methuselah right now for the Tampa Bay Lightning. Doesn't matter. We're talking about a guy that's constantly going to the front of the net, being a pain in the neck for, in this case, Jakub Dobeš. That don't be surprised if he ends up having a big offensive season. I like Slavkovsky too, Jonathan, 100%. He is someone, plus in the Olympics, what he did in big moments, big games. So yeah, Juraj Slavkovsky for sure. I mean, for me, you can get you have to go 3+ goals for him at plus 150. That's the only value. It's too much to lay with 1 goal and 2 goals in the series. But yeah, Slavkovsky has proven himself enough as far as bigger spotlight moments, bigger spotlight games like the Olympics in particular this past year. I think you can maybe count on him to make a bit of an impact here for Montreal. All right, Boston Bruins and Buffalo Sabres. Man, does it feel good to say the Buffalo Sabres are back into the playoffs. Buffalo minus 180, series price here over the Boston Bruins. The only thing I've got here is Buffalo and 7. Buffalo and 7 in this series. Here's why I think this won't be easy for Buffalo. This is new territory for everybody. Even the guys that have been around a long time for this Buffalo Sabres team, like Tage Thompson, for example. They're experiencing playoff hockey for the very first time. So from that standpoint, this is new air for them. I think there's going to be some elements of this series where it's going to be, whoa, this is different from the regular season for us. That being said, I think Buffalo has proven their worth this year, the way they've played, throughout the course of the season. I expect the KeyBank Center to be absolutely rocking throughout this first round series, but I don't think the Boston Bruins will be a pushover for them, and I think they will be right in this series. They'll just fall a little bit short. The reason for that is because you've still got David Pastrnak leading them from the forward group. You've still got heart and soul player on the blue line like a Charlie McAvoy leading that blue line group, and you got Jeremy Swayman, who had pretty much, for the most part, a very, very good season in net for the Boston Bruins, who's had experience in the playoffs for this Bruins team. Won 6 games in the playoffs 2 years ago, the last time they made the Stanley Cup playoffs. And as much as I love what we've seen from UPL, Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen picked a pack of pickled peppers, and he's been terrific as well. Like, if you look at regular season performance, you're splitting hairs with Swayman versus UPL. They were both very good. But at the same point in time, this is now the first playoff series ever in the life of UPL. So how will he handle that playoff pressure a little bit? But I like the makeup of this Buffalo team. What I like is that they've shown over and over again this year, they get a lead, they can hold it. They can lock you down, they can shut it down, and they can find a way to bring it home. That never used to happen with Buffalo. They'd blow leads left and right, and that's exactly why they've had a hard time making the playoffs the last few years. But you also look at the Sabres, and it's not just a reliance on Tage Thompson, Alex Tuck, and the top line. They can get production up and down the lineup. Jack Quinn ended up coming on strong down the stretch. Josh Doan, an incredible addition this past season for the Sabres. And don't look now, and someone Zach Benson, this guy's going to be one of those playoff performers. Go to the net, agitate, find ways to score goals. Zach Benson will be that for Buffalo. And don't look now, guess who started to finally get it rolling offensively? He's had injuries galore in his career. He was kind of in a cold spell before the last week or two. Josh Norris. Josh Norris finally started picking it up for Buffalo late in the regular season. And if that continues, man, that is going to be make Buffalo an even more dangerous group moving forward. Obviously, I don't have a ton of concern really about the blue line. Dahlin, Samuelson, Byram played really well. And then they have depth now because you got Metsa, Stanley, Owen Power, Connor Timmins, Michael Kesselring as extras, Luke Shen, who's probably not going to start in the playoffs, but there's an extra if you accumulate injuries. This is why what Jarmo Kekalainen did was great. And Pierre Maguire on his show with Jimmy ridiculed Montreal for not adding depth on the blue line because he's saying, hello, injuries happen on the blue line in the playoffs. Buffalo can suffer an injury or two on the blue line, and they're not killed by it because they've got players they can put in there. Kesselring, they can put in a Luke Shen who's been around the block forever. So credit to Jarmo Kekalainen, accumulated some depth on the blue line, which you can't have enough of at this time of year. in the Stanley Cup playoffs. That said, this is a Boston team that, at down the stretch at times, we saw some really good play from them. My concern is, again, their road play. It was hideous. It was woeful. It was wretched. And I think at the end of the day, this could be one of those series, too, where the home team is going to win the majority of games. Because Boston was spectacular at TD Garden of this season, but just not very good away from home. One of the biggest home-road dichotomies in the NHL this season. But I do see this being a series where, with Buffalo tasting the playoffs and majority of this roster playing postseason hockey for the first time, and you do have more Bruins on this group that have probably played playoff hockey, kind of used to it. I think they're going to have to work for this series, Buffalo. But I think in the end, they will get it done, and they will get it past Boston, but it'll take the distance to do it. But they will do it in 7 in front of a loud and raucous KeyBank Center. So the only bet for me, and I'm not laying minus 180. It's just not, you're not getting I would have had this maybe closer to, 50 or 60. 180 is a little steep, even with the struggles on the road for Boston this year. So I will just go directly to the exact series result here, Alex, and take Buffalo in 7 in this series between the Bruins and the Sabres. Alex, what do you think here, Boston-Buffalo?
Yeah, well, we both like Buffalo, but I got them a little differently. I think they wrap things up in 6, and I took a shot with Buffalo game 1 and Buffalo to win the series plus 120 as a way to knock that price down for game 1, because you're looking at minus 150, 160 already. And I think that is going to be one of the most hyped atmospheres in a very, very long time for that game 1 at home. I think Buffalo wins that game, and I think they can carry that momentum over. As you mentioned, they're deep. They can play you any kind of style you want. If you want to go up and down, they have the depth and the horses to give you that offense. But they can also shut it down and get quality goaltending and play that kind of clamp down defensive style as well. Like I said, I think Boston, even with the veterans that they have, the playoff experience they do have, Buffalo's not going to be scared of that. Buffalo's not afraid. This is a team that they've been riding hot the entire second half, and I think that can at least continue into the first round. And so I think they take care of business within 6. So I went Buffalo to win game 1 and win game series plus 120. And then I have the correct series exact 6 games plus 215. But both of those at DraftKings.
There we have. Looking forward. I cannot wait to see that first playoff game in Buffalo Sunday night. That's going to be such
that first goal. The decibel level of the first goal they score is going to be like a plane taking off.
Yeah, it absolutely will. It absolutely will. It's just great. And, if you're a Buffalo Sabres fan too, it's already been a dream season. There's nothing that could happen from here on out that could ruin this season. It's already been spectacular.
Right.
Yeah. Just enjoy every minute of it. Okay. Because it's been a long, torturing 15 years since you've been in the playoffs. Enjoy every moment of this. And like I said, I can't wait. I remember when they came out onto the ice for those Briere, Drury, Pominville, Ryan Miller playoff teams in the 2000s. When they hit the ice, it was like deafening in that building.
Yeah.
You couldn't hear yourself think. And I'm looking forward to seeing that environment come back here in this series against Boston. All right, Utah Mammoth and Vegas Golden Knights. This one starts late Sunday night. Game 1 of this series will be the second game of the ESPN doubleheader on Sunday. We've got Vegas minus 170 series favorites in this one. Utah, great story. Obviously, offensively, was excellent down the stretch, could score goals. The more I watched Utah, though, down the stretch, I must say, defensively, some leaks. And Karel Vejmelka at times, oh, boy, tough to watch. I mean, some real tough moments. And if you look at all the advanced numbers, as far as goals saved above expected, his numbers just dropped like a stone late in the season, Karel Vejmelka. Like, there's real concern that what we saw from him in net for the Mammoth. And, of course, he's going to be the guy here to start this series. And I just think that's what's going to hold Utah back in this series. Plus, the little element of, not that we're happy to be there for Utah, but I think for them, they might just need another year to just get a little more depth. This is new territory for Clayton Kell, for especially Gunther, especially Logan Cooley, the guys that have been there for just a couple of years. So like I said, it's just an experience where they're going up against a veteran experienced Vegas Golden Knights team. John there's no, now you could quibble about the strength of schedule for sure in this Vegas surge down the stretch. There's a lot of Vancouvers and Calgarys, and they played Colorado, and Cale Makar didn't play in that game. I get all that. But they lost a belief that they're a good team in the waning days of Bruce Cassidy. That, and the work environment was awful with Bruce there, and that's been well documented. But they have found their game. They're playing. We've seen the best players play great under Torts down the stretch when they finish strong. Jack Eichel was great down the stretch. Even Mitch Marner was great down the stretch. Now, can he do it in the playoffs? In Toronto, there was issues with Mitch Marner in the playoffs, but it's a new scenario, new team. Maybe just being away from the circus and the weight of the pressure in Toronto is what's good for Mitch Marner. He's going to have a phenomenal playoffs. I'm not saying that will happen, but like I said, I'm leaving the possibility for that going into this series. I do like Vegas to advance in this series. Now, minus 170 is not a phenomenal price by any stretch necessarily, but this is the series that I'm interested in too. As far as I know, Alex has mentioned the game one in series bet. I do like that with Vegas here. Win game one and win the series, and it's just a way to knock the price down just a little bit here in this Utah-Vegas series. That's really the only thing I've got pre-series at this point in time. Actually, you know what? Vegas, I forgot to mention this too. Let me just see here. Yeah, I did actually go with minus 1.5. Not many of these two series spread with the Vegas Golden Knights. Minus 1.5, plus 136 is out there at FanDuel. I think it's very possible. It's a 4-2, 4-1, 4-2 kind of series here for the. And I love what Utah's done, and Tourigny's done a great job. We talked about that, but I think it's a tough matchup, and I just hate the way his play just absolutely fell and declined right off a cliff. Karel Vejmelka. I mean, watch every Vejmelka start late in the season. Not good for the Utah Mammoth, and that's going to get them in trouble if he doesn't play any better here in this series. Meanwhile, it looks like Vegas has found their guy. Carter Hart was terrific down the stretch. And now for him, it's not like he has a boatload of playoff experience. He's got a veteran blue line in front of him, blue line that played a lot better down the stretch. I mean, they really do have a good blue line when you think of Theodore, Rasmus Anderson now, Noah Hannafin, and all they have on that blue line for Vegas as far as experience goes. I do like a lot of props, too. We'll get to that in a moment, but that blue line certainly played better down the stretch. I like the Dorofeyev got going down the stretch as well offensively for Vegas. They've got the capabilities. Nick Dowd is a great playoff type of player. He showed it in Washington. That's going to help them at the center ice spot as far as depth goes. So, like I said, great job by Utah. Fun team. I think they have the chance to win a game or two in this series, but I think Vegas will advance. Alex, what do you think, Utah-Vegas?
Yeah, I agree. I think Utah actually has a chance to scare Vegas early. I like Utah after 3 games. They have a 2-1 series lead plus 175, but I think that will be the point where we start to see the veteran presence of the Golden Knights step up, but also, like you mentioned, Karel Vejmelka, I think he falls apart late in the series. This is a guy who has played a ton of hockey. We talked about it late last year when he signed that contract extension, and I think Utah went on to play him in like 20 of the last 22 games of the season. Then you turn around and you give him a league best 64 games played, 63 starts, play him for 3,692 minutes and 45 seconds. That also leads the league in most minutes. And you're going to have to now rely on him to carry you in a playoff series against a team that has tons of weapons, that knows how to navigate through a postseason series. And now you've added a upgrade in coach in John Tortorella, who has this team playing loose, who's got them playing a more relaxed style. So I think Utah can jump on them early, especially getting that win. Game 3 at home, I'm all over Utah. That'll be a team total game for me. Money line if the price is right. I think that'll definitely be a big spot. And I think from there, that'll be the slap in the face, the punch in the face that wakes Vegas up, and then they take care of business down the stretch. So I like Vegas in 6 as well. I didn't make that an official play. The only official bet I have pre-series is Utah with a 2-1 series lead after 3 games, plus 175. You can get that over at FanDuel.
Yeah, I mean, the game 3, I think I'm going to be on Utah in game 3. Like game 3, that environment at Delta Center, first home game first home playoff game for the franchise since relocating, obviously, to Utah. The place will be absolutely, electric, and it's been a great electric environment in the Delta Center down the stretch as well. So Game 3 to me is definitely feels like a Utah spot. I either see it being, and you're right, it could be 2-1 Utah, because maybe they do get a split in Vegas in the first 2 games where they could be up 2-1 after that Game 3. So it could be, I've got it as either Vegas, Utah in the first 3 games, or Vegas, Utah in the first 3 games, and then Vegas kind of ramps it up, and Utah's not able to match it, and that's where the series will swing.
I like Vegas game 1. I like Utah in overtime game 2, and Utah, however, in game 3. That's the way I kind of look at it. I think it could be a coin flip in game 2, but I would lean toward Utah, and I think that definitely. I'll let you know now. I'll be on the draw in game 2 for this one. So.
Yeah, didn't Vegas, Minnesota have a couple draws last year?
Yes,
Game 2 was one of them, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
Yes, it was. There you go. So if you're looking back at that Wild Golden Knights first round series last year, you did end up seeing, obviously, overtime there. Maybe history strikes once again, or history repeats itself, I should say, with Game 2 this time around. As far as props here for this series, I definitely want to throw out mention a few as far as the lead goal markets and everything. I absolutely love Pavel Dorofeyev plus 550 to lead the series in goals. He got his touch back late in the season. I think he's a guy that's going to be able to score goals here in the playoffs in these bigger moments for the Vegas Golden Knights. So at plus 550, I don't mind at all the price that you're looking at as far as him to lead the series as far as goals are concerned. If I were to pick someone for Utah, I mean, Keller's an option and Gunther's an option, but I think the value starts with Cooley, Logan Cooley at plus 700. I would think as far as the Utah side of things, if you're going to look toward that lead goal scorer market, it would probably be toward Logan Cooley and even Lawson Krause at 28-1, because he's going to be on the top line still, I believe. That's not going to change. But that's a little bit of a longer shot. But my favorite's Dorofeyev at plus 550. I think he's going to be a player that's going to have a solid chance here to be leading this series as far as goal production. All right, our last series of the first round to preview, and this one doesn't get going until Monday night. That's why we're wrapping up with it. Anaheim and Edmonton. The current series price here has Edmonton about minus 240, Anaheim plus 200. So sizable favorite here for the Oilers. We love our Anaheim Ducks, Alex and I, and they've had a very good season, get into the playoffs. We cashed over point totals for them to make the playoffs at, that was plus 230 or so.
I got plus 310 in that. Yeah.
Or even more than that. Yeah, you're right. It was plus 300 in some spots. But, yeah, incredible price for them to make the playoffs. And we were very confident about that. You go back and watch the season preview show in October. We thought Joel Quenneville was the perfect hire. He knows what it takes to help a team win and grow this young team, and they did, and they got to the playoffs. And look, at one point a few weeks ago, before the late season swoon, it was looking like they might win the Pacific Division. But obviously, look, the swoon is what concerns me, because anything close to the level of play we've seen from Anaheim in these last 2 weeks, and the Ducks are going to be quacking their way out of this series in a damn hurry. That's all there is to it. Their defense has been an unmitigated mess at times down the stretch. They've had game after game late in the season where they're only giving up 15 shots, 20 shots. But the shots they're giving up, the chances they're giving up are egregious. The coverage in the D zone, equally egregious. And even though there's been games like Nashville, for example, last night, they outshot them 40-20. How the hell are you life and death 5-4 in the last few seconds to win that game? How? With that kind of shot discrepancy. It's because even though you're not giving up a ton of shots, you're giving up way too much quality in the shots that you are allowing. And that's been Anaheim's issue. They're giving up odd man rushes. They're giving up breakaways on fucking power plays, a short-handed goal that Besser scored for Vancouver last week against Anaheim. Though that's the kind of shit that Edmonton could destroy you over in this series if you don't tighten it up. And that is the concern I've got here with the Anaheim Ducks going into this first round against Edmonton. And look, does Edmonton have concerns? Yes, they do. Yes, they do. Depth scoring is a bit of a concern with the bottom six. The blue line I like, but it's not a dominant blue line. You still have some concerns about the goaltending, but I have less concerns about the goaltending now because Connor Ingram was really good down the stretch. It's time to give him his due and tip the cap and say, man, you look playoff ready right now. Connor Ingram was real, and there's not even a doubt in anybody's mind, including Chris Knobloch, that Connor Ingram will be the starting goalie in Game 1 for the Edmonton Oilers. He played really well, and it is his net now to begin the playoffs. And at the other end, we love ourselves some Lukas Dostal, but he wasn't sharp. I wonder if the Olympics and all the hockey he's played has taken a toll on him down the stretch. And obviously, Husso's not the answer. We saw that again last night against Nashville. They won in spite of Billy Husso. That 2 points to save Jonathan Davis from getting into the mental institution over another LA-Edmonton series. They were able to pull that off last night in spite of Billy Husso, who didn't play that great in that game. So if Dostal stumbles, Billy Husso ain't the answer for the Anaheim Ducks. But like I said, Anaheim, somehow was able to score 5 and win that game. And the problem right now is for the Anaheim Ducks here is, I still love them offensively. How can you not? And they're generating chances, and even during their losing skid down the stretch, Anaheim was still able to generate a lot. Shots, chances, but during some of those losses, the puck wasn't going in. Look at the 5-0 loss to Nashville in Anaheim. Like, they should have won that game, and they didn't even score. They got shut out by Justus Annunen in that game. But the goals started to come in, and their offense started to come to life again the last few games down the stretch. But there's just too many concerns I've got defensively with them going into this series, and I don't love the negative trajectory of the goaltending of Dostal down the stretch. And of course, Husso was not much better at all, probably worse actually down the stretch as well. So, I hate to say it because I love this team. And I thought if you had told me 2 months ago, Alex, Anaheim, Edmonton, I probably would be on Anaheim here. I probably would be. I'd be taking a shot with them. But Edmonton, say what you will about their concerns and their flaws, and they do have a few. You've got Connor McDavid, Zach Hyman's back. I think Leon is going to be back at some point in this series. Apparently, Jonathan says it could be Game 1.
Oh,
because I was hearing Game 2 or 3 initially that Leon Draisaitl could make a return, but Jonathan seems to think it could be Game 1. And remember, this doesn't start till Monday night, so that's probably a good thing for Leon Draisaitl and his ability to return and be in the lineup for Game 1 of this series. But yeah, I'm not taking Edmonton. This is going to be a no bet series for me, but no bet. But my pick is Edmonton. I think Edmonton will win this series. How many games we'll see? I might be generous and say give Anaheim a couple games in 6 because their offense is still something to fear, especially if, Cutter Gauthier gets it going. Boy, their offense suddenly got going again when Cutter Gauthier came back from injury. And, of course, Leo Carlsson is tremendous, and he's only going to get better, no doubt. But I've got Edmonton to win this series. Not betting Edmonton, obviously, to win the series, but I'm picking Edmonton to win this series. And there's a lot of props I like in this series because I think this is going to be a high-scoring series. I think Anaheim, all they can do is play high-scoring games at the moment. And Edmonton is going to test them defensively. And if Edmonton gets these leads and pounces on this leaky Anaheim team, Anaheim's got to open it up because they're trailing. So it's only going to lead to the pace getting even higher. And the chances for goals getting exponentially higher. So it's probably, of all the series in the first round, this is one that I could see being a dead nuts over series. Let's not forget about Edmonton, LA last year. And LA was still with Jim Hiller and was known as this defensive-minded, low-scoring type of team. And Edmonton pretty much dragged them start to finish in that series into a track meet, fire wagon hockey. And we're probably going to see a lot of that here in this series. But Alex, your thoughts, Anaheim, Edmonton?
Well, one thing we know for sure, Joel Quenneville will not shit his pants like Jim Hiller did in a 7-game series. We know
he won't make one of the worst challenges known to man like Jim did in that series, that Game 3 that swung everything. Yeah,
highly doubt it. And Q's not the best at challenges either, but I don't think we're going to see the same kind of coaching malpractice that Edmonton ran into and was able to fortuitously move on from as a result of that last year. It's going to be an interesting series, but this is talk about preparation early in the year. You think me getting plus 230 is a great thing with Tampa Bay. because of where Anaheim was priced this year, and I thought this was going to be an Anaheim team that showed this improvement, but was going to kind of sneak in as a wild card and then be kind of in this first round, kind of just happy to be here moment. I grabbed plus 500 that they would be eliminated in the first round. So now instead of laying minus 240, I have plus 5-1 on Edmonton to advance, getting Leon Draisaitl back and catching the Ducks playing arguably the worst hockey of the season right now. So I'm in great shape with that. I did add on because I do think the Ducks steal game one. I think with that, the extra days off, and I think the Ducks, like I said, they've shown resilience. They've been playing a little bit better these last couple of games. I think they can find a way to get that first punch, steal game one, but then I think Edmonton takes over from that series. So I'll have Ducks game one, Edmonton to win series plus 340, along with the plus 500 de facto that I had back in September here. So now I'm an Edmonton Oiler fan for at least a couple of weeks. Not how I was really expecting or planning it to be. But like I said, with Draisaitl coming back, Connor Ingram playing well. This is a guy we'll keep in mind. Remember, he was right there when that 1A1B setup with Vermelka in Utah had some personal issues go down, and Utah had to kind of cut ties with him. But then he got himself back together in Edmonton, got himself back together in Bakersfield, played well, and then, of course, called up in Edmonton with all the goaltending drama that they had. And now he's found himself starting in the playoffs. I think he's good enough to a guy to back in a 7-game series here. And like you said, Dostal, for as well as he's played, as well as he's going to play in this league, I think it's been just a little too much hockey, a little too many minutes, and just a little too much. It's a great run for Anaheim. We'll see them around again. They aren't going away anytime soon as far as I'm concerned. But I think Edmonton, the more veteran group here, gets the job done and they win the series.
All right, great stuff. Love it. As far as props here, I'm going to, for Anaheim, as far as props, I would look at, I would keep it pretty simple and straightforward here. Troy Terry's been around the block. Leo Carlson is, probably already your best player, an incredible two-way player. Those are two guys that I think if you're going to look at players that are going to have to make an impact for the Anaheim Ducks, it's going to have to be them, no question. But my favorite player prop and player to bet in this series, as far as series-long player props, it's Matt Savoy. It's not even close. That I think there is great value with Matt Savoy. And obviously, and I'm not saying that because he had a hat trick against the woeful Vancouver Canucks last night in the last game of the regular season. I'm talking about the way Matt Savoy has played down the stretch for Edmonton. Like, he has been just an impact performer every night for them, pretty much. He's made an impact. He's made a difference for this group. And he is going into this first round playoff series with just an absolute ton of confidence for the Edmonton Oilers. I know for the season he had 37 points, 18 goals, 19 assists. But look at what he's done in particular lately. It's been extremely impressive, the numbers. Just down the stretch, red hot, scoring goals. And he's starting this series with Connor McDavid once again, just like he finished the regular season. You better believe it. So he's going to be playing with number 97. He's going to have so many more opportunities as far as finding the back of the net is concerned for this team. So Matt Savoy to lead the series in goals. He could be this year's Zach Hyman for the Edmonton. Remember Zach Hyman just went nuts 2 years ago?
Yep.
That could be Matt Savoy this year, because he's going to play with McDavid. Now, Hyman's on the other side of that line, but Hyman's coming off being, injured for a bit, and his numbers have been a little more up and down since that huge playoff year. I think Matt Savoy's the target for me. I think he's going to have a big playoff. DraftKings has him just to score, and I'm not usually big on laying minus 160. I always tell you guys that. But for him just to score one goal in the series, minus 160 at DraftKings, I had no problem laying that price. None. Because I think that price should be in the 200s at least. At least. On top line with how red hot he's been down the stretch, that is only minus 160 to score a goal for the damn series. Matt Savoy, that was a great bet. And I'm going on the 2+ and the 3+ goals for sure, in addition to him leading the series in goals for the Edmonton Oilers. So, like I said, he's definitely someone that I think is going to make an impact here. He's going to be still with McDavid. And we talked about Anaheim being a team that struggled to keep the puck out of the net down the stretch as well. So, yeah, Matt Savoy early and often, I think, in this series for the Edmonton Oilers. Great stuff. That is your first round playoff preview. We went through all 8 series, gave you a little bit of everything, picks to win each series. Certainly, exact series, the number of games, series spreads, combinations like win game 1 and the series, player props for the series and all 8 of them. So hope we got you as ready as we possibly could for the Stanley Cup playoffs. And then tomorrow we go back into our regular format at noon Eastern on Saturday, game-by-game preview, sides, totals, player props throughout the Stanley Cup playoffs. So looking forward to that. Check out wizardsportspicks.com and, of course, daily premium picks throughout the NHL Stanley Cup playoffs and NBA playoffs, MLB going as well. I did the Beyond the Lines video earlier today. Check that out, wizardsportspicks.com. And, of course, patreon.com/iceguys, $10 per month. We're going to have multiple Stanley Cup playoff betcasts. And I'm going to be figuring out the dates in the next day or two. We might even announce it tomorrow. As we're going to figure out which days we're going to be doing basically an early block of games one night, a late block of games one night, and it's going to be that kind of back and forth. And we want to give both conferences exposure on the betcast. So, we're going to do one night where it's the East and one night where it's the West on the Patreon exclusive live betcasts during the Stanley Cup playoffs. So, again, get on board, just $10 per month. You'll get goalie charts, totals charts, daily betting cards, sides, totals, player props posted each and every day on the Patreon page. Later today, we'll get all the series bets posted there. So get ready for that. Patreon.com/iceguys. Your membership will go a long way to supporting the show and keeping it going long term. And, of course, many betcasts during the playoffs for Patreon members only. So check it out, $10 per month, patreon.com/iceguys.
And also check out the Ice Guys store, iceguys.myspreadshop.com. It's springtime. It's playoff time. This is a great time to shop at the Ice Guys store, get you some merch. We got caps, we've got hats, we've got T-shirts, we've got hoodies, we've got jackets. We've got everything that can combat this crazy weather where it's one day raining and one day snowing. That's how springtime kind of works around North America. But grab yourself some merch right now at the Ice Guys store. That's over at iceguys.myspreadshop.com.
All right. And yes, this is a playoff series preview show, but we still have a bargain bin special of the night segment and a best bet, and we'll have that coming up right after we hear from our great Ice Guy sponsors.
Wizard Sports Picks, featuring the finest handicappers in the universe. Sharp insights, trusted picks, and relentless results. We strive to help you become consistent winners. This is Wizard Sports Picks.
All right, couple of things before we get to bargain bin special of the night. First of all, Terry Edelman, I see him in the chat earlier. Shout out to him. Posting in the chat, and it is confirmed, just came down the wire. Jesper Wallstedt starting in net in game 1 for the Minnesota Wild. And to be honest with you, I get it. I understand it. Let me rhyme off these numbers for you. Philip Gustafsson, in his final 6 appearances, 4.25 goals against average, .836 save percentage. Jesper Wallstedt, in his last 7 appearances, 1.84 goals against average, .935 save percentage. I mean, if you're just basing it off the numbers down the stretch and the current form, Wallstedt's the choice, even with the lack of playoff experience. So there you go, Alex. Wallstedt, game 1.
That's huge for a franchise that has historically made the wrong choice during the postseason, whatever the case may be, for them to make a strong, stand here and go with your hotter goaltender, not just current form, but the entire season. Just your better talented goaltender should be your number one goaltender when you get into the Stanley Cup playoffs. And that's what John Hines decided to do.
There we go. Now will it pay off? That remains to be seen. But like I said, I agree with the move. I think certainly if you're a Minnesota Wild fan, it's good news for you, and it gives you a better chance. Definitely does, in my opinion. So Jesper Wallstedt, Game 1 starter, Saturday in Dallas. I just wanted to mention David Raleigh from Raleigh. Of course, he joins us every Friday on the show usually. Wasn't able to today, but he did send along his series of bets as far as the postseason is concerned. We'll just see if we can bring those up right here. Hold on one. There we go. Okay. He's on Edmonton to win the series. Even at minus 210, he laid the price with Edmonton. He took Buffalo minus 175. He took Philadelphia plus 140 to win the series. He's got the Oilers to win the West, the Oilers to win the Stanley Cup plus 600, plus 1200. And yes, he is indeed on his Carolina Hurricanes. I can't say I'm totally shocked by that one, but Carolina to beat the Ottawa Senators as well around that minus 160, minus 170 price. So those were David's series looks for the first round of the Stanley Cup playoffs. All right, let's get into bargain bin special of the night. Favorite series bet, I guess you could say, plus 300 or better for bargain bin special of the night. Alex, we'll start with you on this one. Bargain bin special of the night.
Yeah, let's go with my only player prop of the entire first round. We're going to go with that Minnesota Dallas series. Like I said, I like Quinn Hughes to get 3 or more goals within the series. Now, it was up to plus 50 to 1. That has now been cut in half over at DraftKings. Plus 2,500 is the best price available, but I still think that's worth it. I think Quinn Hughes, win or lose in this series, is going to show up in a big way and get at least 3 goals here. So Quinn Hughes to score 3 or more at 25 to 1. That is my bargain bin special of the first round.
Funny you went to a 3+ goals prop, because my bargain bin special is a 3+ goals prop as well here for the first round. And we're going to go right back to this game, the player in the series we just talked about a moment ago, Matt Savoy for the Edmonton Oilers. DraftKings has him at 12 to 1, plus 1,200 to score at least 3 goals in this series. Hell, he had 3 goals in 1 period last night against Now, that was Vancouver. I get it. But the bottom line is Matt Savoy is in a perfect position to score goals in bunches in this series, and at least 3. Why? Because he's playing with Connor McDavid on the top line. He's getting the minutes. He's getting the ice time. And, oh, yeah, Anaheim fell apart defensively down the stretch. So there should be a ton of opportunity for Matt Savoy to get 3 goals in this series on playing with Connor McDavid. We will go with that for my bargain bin special of the night. Give me Matt Savoy, Edmonton Oilers, plus 1,200 to score at least 3 goals in the series against Anaheim for my bargain bin special of the night. All right, best bet for our Stanley Cup playoff preview show. Alex, what do you got for best bet?
We talked about Quinn Hughes and what kind of impact he has made on the Minnesota Wild since being traded over from the Vancouver Canucks. He's been the heart and soul of that organization ever since. Talk about Jesper Wallstedt getting the start in Game 1. He's had a fantastic run so far in his rookie year. He's going to be, I think, the goaltender of the future here in St. Paul for quite some time. They like to call him the Wall of St. Paul. But what those two men don't realize yet is that they live and play in Choke City, and they're not getting past the first round, just like they never get past the first round. Give me the Dallas Stars minus 115 to advance the second round against the Minnesota Wild.
Choke City. It is look. We're talking about a freaking horrific history in the postseason for the city of Minnesota. Like, there's no argument. I mean, it's been a disaster, really, for the better part of the last 30 years. What's the last time that won a championship there? The Twins baseball, right?
91 Twins. Yeah.
Yep. There you go. Kirby Puckett. Kirby Puckett is the last time we remember something great happening. In the with the Minnesota pro sports scene. That's how much of a drought it has been. But there you go. It's funny because I am going to roll as far as my best bet here is concerned. There was a couple of choices I was down to as far as this series, as far as the decision making is concerned. But I think I am going to end up going with the. I'm going to go with this Colorado 4 to 1. I like that. It's a big plus price, but like I said, I think I feel 5 games is exactly what we're going to get in this series. A 4-1 series victory for the Colorado Avalanche. Correct score. We'll go with that. 4-1 Colorado plus 250 We'll go with that for my best bet. I really do like that. I think it's going to be a 5-game series victory for the Colorado Avalanche. So Colorado to win the series, 4-1 over the Los Angeles Kings, plus 250 for my best bet. Shout out to everyone in the chat. Hit the like button. We appreciate it very much. And again, we are looking forward to the playoffs. And tomorrow we're back. The format you know and love. Every game on the board, sides, totals, player props. We'll tee up all 3 Saturday games tomorrow, noon Eastern. We got Ottawa, Carolina, Minnesota, Dallas, and of course the Battle of Pennsylvania, Pittsburgh, Philadelphia. Oh, cannot wait. Excited to get these Stanley Cup playoffs underway. These are fresh matchups. We got new teams in there for the first time in years. Absolutely beyond excited for the beginning of the playoffs tomorrow. A reminder, the Ice Guys is live 7 days a week, Monday to Friday, 2 p.m. Eastern, Saturday, Sunday, noon Eastern. If you can't watch the show live, download the Ice Guys podcast in audio form on all major podcast platforms. Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, and more. Download the Ice Guys podcast when you can't watch the show live. For Alex B. Smith, I'm Ian Cameron. Enjoy your Friday night, and we will see you tomorrow as the playoffs begin, Saturday, noon Eastern, right here on the Ice Guys.